Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome once again. Thanks for being such a supporter for my channel, The Value Creation Playbook. Today in episode 32, I talk of pricing power versus pricing discipline. Uh, Actually, what happens is most leadership teams talk about pricing power. Very few talk about pricing discipline. When margins erode, it really is because markets suddenly become hostile. Is because pricing decisions inside the organization become inconsistent, invisible, or unmanaged. In this session, we'll explore the difference between pricing power and pricing discipline and why sustainable pricing outcomes depend far more on the latter than the former. When prices decline, because explanations are usually external, and we hear things like the market is competitive, customers are price sensitive, or we have lost pricing power. But many firms, when you look around, which have very strong brands, differentiated offerings, or switching costs, still struggle to hold price. That tells us something very important. Pricing failure is often not a market problem, it's an internal one. Pricing power, in essence, is the ability to charge a premium, pass through cost increases, or resist customer pressure. This is essentially it. It could be a mix and match of all the three, but one or two of them will always be there. It's shaped by differentiation, scarcity, switching costs, and customer dependence. Pricing power is real and valuable, but it's important to recognize what it actually is, the potential. Whether that potential turns into realized margin depends entirely on how pricing decisions are made and reinforced. Many powers have seen organizations which have pricing power on paper but not in practice. Sales teams override price to close deals, exceptions are approved informally, discounts accumulate deal by deal. In both services and manufacturing, pricing power leaks through hundreds of small decisions long before it appears in financial results. By the time leaders realize that margins have eroded drastically, that behavior is already embedded. And that's a very dangerous situation any leader can find himself in. That's why I say it's very important to bring in pricing discipline. So, what exactly is pricing discipline? Is pricing discipline is the organization's ability to apply pricing logic consistently, control exceptions deliberately, and align incentives with margin, not just volume. It's not rigidity. Never am I saying that you need to be rigid for your business decisions. No. What I'm saying is be flexible, but only when trade-offs are explicit. Without pricing discipline, even strong pricing power evaporates under day-to-day operating pressure. However, pricing discipline rarely collapses dramatically. It erodes quietly. In manufacturing, it shows up as rush orders, small batch customization, or in many other forms. In services, scope creep, relationship discounts, or senior involvement without repricing. Such exceptions feel justified initially, But when you change the lens, then you understand that they systematically destroy margin. And that's where I say that pricing is as much as a behavioral system as it's a technical, mathematical system that has to be built. Always remember pricing is not just a number on a rate card, it's a behavioral system. It reflects who has a decision right, what gets measured, when do you measure, and what gets rewarded, and which exceptions are getting challenged. When pricing discipline is weak, behavior optimizes for speed, comfort, and deal closure, not profitability. That's where pricing outcomes are ultimately behavioral outcomes. Now, let's talk about cost to serve and the pricing discipline. We just talked about cost to serve in my previous episode, so by now you understand why it's most important than many other metric, but unfortunately a lot of firms ignore that. It's good to know and good to remember that pricing discipline collapses fastest when cost to serve is invisible. When leaders don't see service intensity, order complexity, or delivery volatility, high effort demand gets underpriced. That is where the other two episodes connect. Pricing discipline depends on economic alignment, not just market benchmarks or competitive prices. When margins fall, many organizations respond with uniform price increases. These usually fail because customers are not homogeneous. Some customers are price sensitive, some are behaviorally expensive, some are economically attractive even at lower prices. Uniform action ignores economic reality. Disciplined prices, on the other hand, require segmentation and explicit trade offs. And that is where I feel that a disciplined organizations which show strong pricing discipline has four unique characteristics. First, they define pricing corridors rather than fixed prices. Secondly, they link discounts to give clear give and get rules. They escalate exceptions systematically. And they review pricing behavior, not just outcomes. In both services and manufacturing, pricing shifts from negotiation to governance. And that again brings me to the role of digital and analytics. Always remember that digital tools support pricing discipline when used correctly, but they don't create the pricing discipline. Always remember that. They help enforce guardrails, that is for sure. Help you track discounting behavior and surface leakage early. That's essentially giving you the additional layer of information which will help you in making decisions right. But always remember, without clear rules, decision making process, incentives, tools, whether it's digital or advanced technology, they simply automate inconsistency. Technology amplifies pricing system to make better decisions. It doesn't replace them. Within a broader profitability engine, pricing discipline plays a central role, and it connects cost to serve insight with customer segmentation, service design, and margin accountability. This ensures pricing decision reinforce operating model rather than undermine efficiency, cash flow, or services strategy. And always, there are four things I suggest to the leaders who come to me on this topic, telling them that these are the four things that you always need to keep in mind, and across services in manufacturing and other sectors. I think this will automatically hold true. Pricing power is your potential, whereas pricing discipline is the execution. Always remember behavior beats intent. And lastly, governance beats heroics. Firms that sustain margin are really the most aggressive. They are the most consistent. So next time you go to the drawing board or speak to your CFO or speak to your chief operating officer and everybody says market is an issue, you need to ask a very different question. Do we actually lack pricing power or do we lack pricing discipline? Organizations that answer this honestly often discover hidden margin, not through market strength, but through better governance and clearer rules. In the next episode, we will look at how pricing governance is redesigned once behavior becomes visible. Thank you so much for being a part of today's session. Till next time, take care, stay safe, and we speak soon. Goodbye for now.